You're on the Six Screens Telenetwork, earning the reputation of giving all the right ingredients, uninhibited, in exposing the hard, cold facts about the Watchtower Society. And now, the end is near.
Well, here we go, another rockin' awesome Saturday night. And here it is, June 4th, 2022. And we are counting down the last days of the Watchtower. Well, there you have it, and hello everyone, and welcome in to our weekly program, JW World News, the Watchtower doesn't want you talking about. Well, my name is Rick Farron, and I am coming to you from the apostate capital of the world. We are up here in Boston, Massachusetts. It's the epicenter of apostasy. And I'm glad you could join us tonight. Boy, do we have a big program lined up tonight. You don't want to miss the Six Screens. All of our programs, and you just heard Anne Marie's. That was her maiden voyage. We just got to get some kinks out of that program. But that was her maiden voyage here on YouTube. And a lot of people were listening in and watching. So we're looking forward to doing more programs, all of them, eventually all of the programs here on the Six Screens, that is, will be on YouTube and Facebook. Right now, we have approximately 17 different programs that run. And, well, we hope we can get them all up here so you guys can listen. And it's like a network of former Jehovah's Witnesses, and some not just opposers of the Watchtower, but they have programs on here and they want to share their thoughts on what goes on behind the curtains of the Watchtower. Well, let's get right into it. This week, I don't know if you guys saw it or not, but anyways, it was something to really talk about tonight, and we can spin it somewhat. I don't know if you saw Brother Hurd, governing body member Brother Hurd. Well, he was on JW Broadcasting in the last week, and, well, he did a video and all about the persecution that the Jehovah's Witnesses are suffering, mostly in Russian, or showing prisoners. I'm going to play a clip of it. I got a little spin. I want to spin it a little bit, and we'll talk a little bit about it. I'm going to get the program up here, so let me see if I can't get that right now. JW Broadcasting, which we have here. So I want you to hear this. If you're on our radio network, you'll hear it. If you're on Facebook and YouTube, you'll see it. So this is Brother Hurd, and I'm going to fast forward here, 6:30 in. I got to go 6 minutes and 30 seconds in. And Brother Hurd is coming on, and of course, the governing body's message is they always love you. And their message also is that, stay close to Jehovah and don't listen to apostates. But let's move up here. Let's go to 6 minutes and 30 seconds in. This is where the stormtroopers come in. They've been really using a lot of propaganda, a lot of scare tactics lately. So let me scroll right here. All right, now just watch this. You can see it. You can hear it. Let me make sure everything's ready to go here. Let's get it playing right now. All right, hold on 1 second. We do have an issue here for some reason. We are not getting it up. Hold on 1 second. Well, I'll tell you what, we have been going crazy here all day long. Why? Okay, I see my microphone is not plugged in properly. It's in the wrong hole, so I think that'll help us now. So let me just go back a little bit, and we'll be able to get it on. All right, let's listen now.
It was a Sunday. A meeting was in progress. After the search had finished, they told me that I had to go with them. I opened the door,
because FSB officers were persistently ringing the doorbell. Then after a few seconds came the sound of smashing glass. They'd smashed the balcony, then broken down the door on the balcony. And when my wife had tried to tell them the door was already open so that they wouldn't smash anything, pieces of glass cut her forehead and a vein was... They cut a vein in her hand. And then the officers approached me and showed me the search warrant. And I said to them, "I'm not interested in the warrant. Call an ambulance." We wanted to send my wife to the hospital, but she decided to stay with me. The search continued for 5 hours. So they locked me up. 2 days later, there was a court hearing at which they ruled to place me under arrest and send me to a pretrial detention center.
We're going to continue on with this a little bit, but this anyway is a man named Sergei, a Jehovah's Witness man named Sergei, and he was in Russia, and the stormtroopers, the Russian government, came to his door, and they just busted the door down. I mean, that's what the witnesses, the governing body want you to know, is the door was busted down, and in came the stormtroopers, and the wife got cut with some flying glass. And then they searched his house for 5 hours, and then they found something in his house they didn't like, whatever it was, and consequently they sent him to prison. But let's continue on. Listen to a little more of this. We'll listen to a couple of minutes, and then we'll give you a little more update and kind of get our spin on it. Let's listen in.
The most difficult part of all the persecution was being in the pressure cell. When I entered, or rather, when the warders and guards of the detention center pushed me in there, the first thing I heard was the word, "Get down on your knees." But I told them that the only person I went down on my knees for was God. Then they started shouting, ridiculing me, though I didn't understand what they were asking of me or what they wanted. I only found out after several hours, when they told me directly that I had to give them information about 2 brothers who had been detained in a neighboring town. They laid out instruments of torture in front of me and said that I wouldn't be able to stand it or hold out. So I'd better agree to cooperate with them. I didn't give any evidence against those brothers, because I knew it would make their situation worse.
I faced my own hardships when I was put into pretrial detention. Every day, from morning to night, they have the radio on. The radio is very loud in the cells. People are talking. Then after several months in the detention center, they put me into a solitary confinement cell. I was worried about who I would preach to.
Here's a man in prison. They put him in a solitary confinement in a Russian prison. And the thing he's worried about is who is he going to preach to? Boy, you want to talk about, mind control. Do you think that would be on your mind here? You're going into solitary confinement and you're saying, gee, who am I going to be able to speak to? Well, the broadcast goes on. I'm not going to play any more of it. Let me just get out of this. And but anyways, the point I wanted to make with this is pure propaganda. And it makes me really sick that the governing body has got to use these poor people, Jehovah's Witnesses, being thrown into prison. That never had to happen in Russia. The governing body loves to see this. This is persecution. This is helping the Watchtower to further their agenda, to bring persecution into the picture. It's going to bring people, oh, look at these poor people. We have it made here. We can do more. That's all the Watchtower is doing this for. And I mean, they're embellishing it. It showed the stormtroopers coming in that video. And, it wasn't being recorded by this Sergei. So the Watchtower added that for embellishment. But the Watchtower loves being able to get you frightened to death. So I thought that was somewhat interesting. But you know what really irritates me too? What really irritates me to the highest order is all of these updates on JW streaming. At the very end of them, in this case, it was Brother Herd, but at the very end of the broadcast, we want you brothers and sisters to know we love you. And we send our love from Watchtower up here at the world headquarters. They say that at the end of every single streaming they do. Does the governing body really love the Jehovah's Witnesses? I would have to say no. If they really love the Jehovah's Witnesses, these brothers and sisters in Russia would not be put in prison in the first place. They would have told the brothers and sisters, the Jehovah's Witnesses, that is, in Russia, to low-key it. Don't get involved in things. Just cool it. These guys are going to be coming after you. No, they wanted to instigate the Russian government. So, you know, if brothers in jail can't attend meetings, if they can attend a meeting, say in jail, as some of them were doing, what they did, that brother Sergey, I didn't get into, we don't have time to play more of it, but that Russian brother Jehovah's Witness Sergey, what he did is he was actually getting information from the Watchtower. Somebody was smuggling it into him. And when he was in prison, he was actually giving talks to some of the other prisoners. Of course, he had to be careful doing that because he could get in further trouble. So, but they still consider themselves attending meetings. And so consequently, what the Watchtower is trying to instruct the witnesses here in this video is if the brothers in jail, in prison, if they can attend a meeting, well, by all means, you should be able to attend a meeting, right? That's the message that I get from it. So it's just unbelievable that the governing body continues to use this propaganda. And, you know, Jehovah's Witnesses are supposed to be loyal even in the face of death, as that one man was going to be tortured if he didn't tell. In the video, there's one witness man, and they brought out torturing instruments. They were going to torture him, and they did, unless he told of certain ones he knew of and where they were. He wouldn't do it, and I understand it. He's very loyal. But here, the Jehovah's Witness organization, people are supposed to be so loyal, even in the face of death. But then I think about the governing body. I think about how they can lie in court and how they can evade courts for spiritual warfare. But the rank and file can't. But the governing body can. But these witnesses would have lost their life. But the governing body does. They're bad leaders. They're bad leaders. They do not do what they preach. So this brother, too, when he was going into solitary confinement, Sergey, his name was, when he was going into confinement, he was worried about preaching. That was the only thing on his mind. That's what he said in the video. I mean, he had his wife. His wife didn't leave him, but he had to leave her because he went to prison. That would be the first thing you'd think he would say. But the classic witness is more concerned about how many hours they're going to get in than anything else, because they're afraid they're going to become inactive in Jehovah's organization. It's a darn shame. It's a darn shame that even if you're in solitary confinement, you have to feel that you're not doing enough. You're not doing enough for the organization. You're not getting enough time in. Such a mind game. This organization keeps its members in mental and physical prison, no matter what the circumstance. So that's what witnesses are. They're in their own prison, never mind a real prison like these Russian ones are in. So that's my feelings on it. And I'm going to tell you another thing. I'm going to tell you where the power is resting right now. If the Jehovah's Witness organization took away Zoom meetings, if they just stripped Zoom meetings from the witnesses, they would lose their power. You say, well, how would they lose their power, Rick? Well, Isn't it a scripture that they always use in Hebrews? I believe it's the 24th chapter. I should have looked it up ahead of time. But how they say that no one is to forsake the meetings. And if they're still on Zoom, well, you'd still be going to the meetings, right? So they can't come to you and say, well, that's not a meeting, because they're the ones that instituted it. So if they strip Zoom away right now, because so many brothers and sisters in the Watchtower want to stay on it, they would lose so much power. So, the witnesses now, the PMOs, or the PMEs, I should say, the PMEs, those that are still loyal to the Watchtower, that they feel like they just came through the Great Awakening because of COVID. They feel it, this has been such a big test for Jehovah's organization, and we came through the Great Awakening. And they're just thinking that they were really showing their loyalty by Jehovah by getting on Zoom, and they were doing it in the comforts of their own home, but nonetheless, they didn't forsake the gathering of themselves together. So I'll tell you what, if the Watchtower cancels Zoom tomorrow, the Watchtower is cooked. It's done. Hey, we got some really good programming coming up tonight. I just want to tell you, I meant to tell you at the very outset, but at 9:30, we have got Reese coming in from the belly of the beach down in New York City. And he's going to be talking about a lot of things that have taken place here in the last couple of weeks. So you want to stay tuned to Reese's program. He'll be on at 9:30. And also we got on JW World News at the end of this broadcast, in fact, coming up in about a half hour, we have got Barbara Anderson. She's going to be joining us as well. And we all know Barbara Anderson. Of course, she was the one that worked for the Watchtower at the time, and she found all the database, all of the pedophiles in the Watchtower. So she's going to come on tonight. She's got some things she wants to share with us. So we're looking forward to that. So she'll be coming on very, very shortly. That'll be about 8 o'clock. So anyways, I got Atlantis. I talk about Atlantis. He's the fella, the insider at the Watchtower. And he sends announcements to me. About once a month I get them. But I just got some in the last couple of days here. In fact, just this morning, he sent some brand new announcements to me, and I want to I want to read some of it to you. It's quite provocative. The Watchtower is really expecting a lot from people these days. Of course, they always did, but they're expecting more, I think, now than ever before. And so this announcements, and you remember the announcements and reminders that the organization used to, when you were going to the Kingdom Hall, they used to read it to you in the service meeting. Remember that? Well, we get these announcements and reminders before the congregations even get them. But let me give you a little information here on what the reminders are for June. First of all, the Watchtower does not want the witnesses posting any material from their websites on social media. So don't take pictures of Watchtower publications. Don't take the videos that you see on JW Broadcasting and put them on social media. Don't do it. It says they don't want you doing any artwork, electronic publications, trademarks, music, photos, videos, and articles from the website jw.org. So don't do it. And I mean, they're very emphatic about it. And if you did put some up, they now even say, please remove it. They don't want any of their information being put on the social networks. Well, why do you think so? Why would you think that? I mean, I'm thinking that they know a lot of apostates are getting hold of information, including myself, that I get from, JW's Talking Online. I get from jw.org. So they're really trying to clamp down. So I thought that was quite the announcement this week. But I got an announcement here I think even is going to, in fact, I'll tell you what, it's going to almost make you get sick, because that's what it does to me. Now, we've been seeing the war in Ukraine, and it is terrible. It's showing bodies. It's showing all kinds of things that are very, very discouraging to see. And there's a lot of people around the world, including even some Jehovah's Witnesses, that are making private efforts to provide relief supplies to some of these poor people. They're making these private arrangements on their own to get relief to some of the Ukrainian people. And they're sending it to Poland. Even some of the stuff is going into Ukraine. But it says don't make any, this is the letter now. This is the letter from the Watchtower saying this. Don't make any arrangements, private arrangements, to send relief supplies to brothers in need, such as in Ukraine, unless you have been asked to do so by the branch office. So they don't want you, suppose you have a sister or a real brother, physical brother, that lives in Ukraine, and you want to, get a few of your brothers over here in your congregation to send a little care package to them. Don't do it. They don't want you doing anything on your own. They have asked to do everything through the branch office. It says, although well-intentioned you might be in wanting to send these shipments, it can interfere and create other challenges. So, I'm smelling a rat here. This is not passing the smell test. They don't want you to do this. They want everything to go through them. They're saying it could disrupt things. Well, how's it going to disrupt things? So thus, instead of sending your own relief, here's what they say in the letter: you can contribute to the worldwide work, such as by donatejw.org. It's right on their website, so you can donate there. So, don't help your physical brother and his wife and their 3 children. Just send the money to Watchtower, and they'll see to it that your brother's going to get the money. What do you think? Anyone want to speak up? Anyone have anything to say? Go ahead, hit *6 and say hello.
Something tells me that Sergey is not going to get that money.
Yeah, no, in fact, Pixie, this is what really makes me, it's so easy to see all of this once you see it. I mean, we follow this, we look at it, we talk about it every week. Go ahead, somebody else is on with it. We get some noise coming in. Who's on there with us? Go ahead.
I was thinking too that the more
hold on. Hold on, Susan. I'm sorry. Dick, is that you? Are you in your car? It's really noisy.
I'm in my car, my top is down, so
yeah.
I'll make it really good. The worldwide witness report is nothing but a black hole. The Watchtower to get money from.
Oh, you got it. There you go. Thank you, Dick. Just mute yourself if you would. Just mute yourself. All right, that's good. Okay, Susan, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What made me think, too, is it's just like government. When it gets so big, it doesn't want to let go of control. And the Watchtower doesn't want to let control of anything. They want to control every aspect of your life, as you say, from the cradle to the grave. And also, they're going to get credit from among the people for donating. If they even donate, I don't know what percentage of it, to Ukraine, they'll get all the credit for the donation rather than you. Not that you would be looking for any kudos. You just want to help out your particular family. But Watchtower just wants all the glory and all the money.
Well, that's all I can read from it, Susan. That's all I can really see. I don't see any reason other than them getting the money and then they can do with it what they want. That's the only reason I can see. But the letter goes on. I got 5 letters this week from Atlantis, the undercover man at the Watchtower. Now, Atlantis sent me this one. It's for all elders in the United States branch territory. Now listen to what they're saying here. You'll find this fascinating. Adjustments to activities related to COVID-19 pandemic. We warmly commend you for your sincere efforts to apply the principles provided by the organization during this global pandemic. Until recently, steps have been taken to avoid as many risks as possible to prevent cases of COVID-19. However, vaccines and booster shots have provided or proved, that is, to be effective against COVID-19. Additionally, in many places, effective treatments are now available. As a result, hospitalizations and deaths have generally decreased, especially among those fully vaccinated. Now watch this after they give you that little taste of, oh, things are getting way better now. Therefore, it seems appropriate to take a living with COVID approach. So I never heard that. We're going to live with the COVID approach. They're going to live now because they have a different approach now that COVID is dying down. But what is the new approach? In view of this new approach, in addition to resuming all aspects of our public ministry with the exception of door-to-door witnessing. So they're now getting the command from Watchtower to now resume their public ministry, but no door-to-door witnessing. It says further adjustments are being made to activities related to the pandemic. Then it goes on to say that there'll be more direction given to the body of elders in due time. Now, notice this. It says discontinuation of COVID-19. They're giving discontinuation of what you now don't have to do in a kingdom hall. So the Watchtower is telling the elders locally they're no longer going to supply direction on how you're going to handle COVID in your kingdom hall, in your congregation. Well, that sounds, I'm sure it's because they don't want to get their pantsuit off, right? In other words, you're on your own. If someone gets COVID and, they say that, you let them in the kingdom hall and they sue you, don't basically come to us. That's what I see is happening here. So they're saying there that you're going to have to do it on your own. So we're not going to give you any more directives on how you're going to handle COVID. And then it says use of kingdom halls. This is part of the public ministry. You'll be able to use the kingdom halls once again for the congregation meetings. As we all know, they have already gone back to the meetings. And also the use of the kingdom hall for weddings, for funerals, and meeting for field service. And the kingdom hall dedications. Of course, they're going to be able to open that up too and have all of these mucky mucks from Watchtower. I don't know what the halls they're dedicating because they're not really making any brand new ones. They're not building them. So then also the halls are open for elders meetings. They're open now to investigate reports of serious wrongdoing, as well as meetings of judicial and reinstatement committees. And the use of face masks is strongly encouraged for all activities at the Kingdom Hall. So, yeah, everything but field service, everything's back to pretty much normal. It's going to be cart witnessing for the most part, but they don't really have enough carts. So basically what I gather here from what some of the witnesses are writing online is they will go out and they'll share a cart. They'll go at some town common or stand on the street beside a cart and have 2 or 3 witnesses standing next to them. So that evidently is how they're going to break into this. But I think it might be only a matter of time. And I'm really flabbergasted. I didn't think they would resume the public ministry again. But here they are. They're going to go out at least with the carts. And I think it's only a matter of time now. They'll go up, door to door. So in-person meetings for field service, that's going to be left up to the judgment of the body of elders. So you know how we used to meet for field service at the Kingdom Hall? Well, that's going to be up to the brothers in the local halls to decide whether they want to do that. Now, also, this is something now, this is interesting. They're now going to also have private homes once again. What goes around comes around. So now we're learning that some of the brothers and sisters, if they would like to open their home up, so the brothers and sisters could meet there for field service, not for meetings, but for field service, then they could do that. So these brothers and sisters, that they're comfortable using their home for field service meetings, they can do it, and no one should pressure them to do it. However, the use of face masks is strongly encouraged for these meetings in private homes. So they're still holding on to the COVID face masks. So isn't that something? So they are going back to public ministry, not door to door at this time, however. Go ahead. You got a question? Go ahead.
Going back to public ministry, not door to door at this time, however.
Who's got somebody's on now? They've got
going back to public ministry, not door to door at this time, however.
All right. If you put that call on once again, caller, you're going to get banned right out of here. So don't put your phone on. You get your phone on with me speaking on the phone. That's why I'm getting a little bit of background echoing here. Don't do that, okay? If you're going to speak up and talk, shut me off first because I can hear myself in the background. All right, also, what you got here is they're going to keep the low hour requirements for regular and special pioneers. The low hour requirement continues, and for right now, it's going to be suspended. You don't have to get, to be a pioneer. First of all, the latest figures I have, to be an auxiliary pioneer, that's like a part-time pioneer, you have to get 50 hours a month in. So they relaxed that during COVID, where you don't have to get any time in at all. And the same thing with a regular pioneer. A regular pioneer, from the last I knew, is 70 hours a month. Now, they relaxed that during COVID too. So you could be a pioneer, and you know how much time you had to report every month? Nothing. And you could become a pioneer. Now, you tell me, they would have liked, I'm sure, if you were a pioneer, you would have reported something, but the organization cut you slack during the COVID pandemic. They cut you slack thinking, well, it must be kind of hard, and we don't want to lose all the pioneers. It wouldn't look good. So we'll just let them kind of just go through the motions. But I'm sure some of the pioneers were still getting some time in, maybe not all of their time, but they're still going to allow for pioneers not to have to meet any hour requirements. Now, what do you think would happen if they put those hour requirements back on the pioneers? You would see the biggest exit of pioneers ever in the history of the Watchtower. Who wouldn't pioneer? Why wouldn't you, if you were a loyal witness, why wouldn't you sign up to be a pioneer during COVID when basically there was no time requirements? So, that's something that they're going to have to be very careful when they open those hours back up and you have to meet requirements. You are going to see the pioneer ranks tank. They're going to go right down the tubes. Also, shepherding visits. Oh, how are the elders? How are they going to be? Will they be able to go out and give shepherd visits now that the ministry is open? Yes, they will. Yeah, in-person shepherding visits are now permitted. But however, the use of face masks are required. Now, this is interesting. Cleaning and maintenance activity organized by the congregation. So, yes, they're always looking for people to clean the kingdom halls, right? I'm sure you guys clean the toilets. I'm sure you guys vacuum the rugs. So they're saying that even to clean, they're going to relax, I guess, the qualifications here to clean. It says while vaccination is not recommended. In other words, you don't have to have a vaccination to clean a toilet. Thank goodness for that. So it's saying it is required, it is not required, that is, to participate in cleaning and maintaining the kingdom hall. However, a face mask is strongly encouraged. So you'll see the brothers and sisters cleaning the toilets. You'll see them vacuuming the rugs. But guess what? They're going to have to be wearing a face mask. Now that is something else, isn't it? So, yeah, right. I want to bring that up because I find it rather fascinating that they are going back. I didn't personally, I have to tell you, I got to eat a little crow here. I was really thinking they weren't going to go back at all. But no, they are. They're gonna put themselves. They have to. Let's face it. How are we going to recruit people? That's how they recruit people in the public ministry, and they'll be going door to door, I'm sure, too. So I wanted to bring that to your attention here tonight. Any thoughts on that at all? Does anyone want to speak up and say something about the ministry, the public?
New numbers
Go ahead, Pixie.
of week are half what they were when COVID started.
Yeah, well, the numbers obviously are coming down. Lots of witnesses have left, and if they haven't left the organization during COVID, they're at least PMOs. They're physically in, they're mentally out. So it's just something here that the Watchtower is aware of, and I'm going to tell you why. The Watchtowers now, they're very worried about losing a lot of people. Do you know what a lot of circuit overseers are now doing? And this is the first time I heard of this. Circuit overseers are coming into the congregation, and they're sitting down with the elders, and they're asking the elders if within the last 6 months, if there's been people disfellowshipped for apostasy. And they're really getting serious now on apostasy. And then they're asking, now this is a line that I never heard in the witness world. So now the circuit overseers are asking the elders, is there anybody that's angry in the organization? Yeah, that's what they're asking the elders. Is there anybody that's angry in the organization? This is a new question. They're running scared, folks. They're losing their grip. They're not keeping as many people as they would like. They're having a hard time maintaining the people that they have. Now, let me just read you something from the 2015, April 15th Watchtower. Let me just read you this. According to Watchtower figures, now this is 2015. According to Watchtower figures, 1 in every 100 Jehovah's Witnesses is disfellowshipped each year, over 80,000 of which 2/3 will not be reinstated. That means there are over 1 million disfellowshipped Jehovah's Witnesses alive today that are being shunned. So just giving you an idea, according to their own statistics, 2015, they were saying there's 1 in every 100 Jehovah's Witnesses that gets disfellowship. That's even got to be
That's a huge number for a small organization.
Yes, it is. And that's right from their own writings. But I'm going to tell you what, in view of what the circuit overseers are asking elders, is there anybody that you know of in this congregation that is angry? Jeez, I think there's a lot of angry ones right now. I don't know if they're going to go up to them and tell the elders they're angry, but I suppose you could pick up on the angriness if you're around them.
I think anger is normal, but after a while you just don't miss it because you get tired of walking over imaginary alligators in jungles. You get tired of prisons you've never visited, and you get tired of a bunch of people, a bunch of men in New York telling you if they can dispense salvation to you or not.
Well, there you go, Pixie.
The longer you're away from it, the more you see it clearly.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm seeing them really clear. So they're looking for angry ones. Now, sexual...
Could I make a comment?
Yes, go ahead. Yes, we'd love to hear from you, Susan. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll be very
Come nice and
brief.
close to your phone now.
When people get angry, they make poor decisions because their emotions are involved. Instead, they look at feelings instead of facts. If their feelings are hurt, if they see elders' kids getting away with stuff that they shouldn't or whatever, there's always something going on. So the anger festers itself until they can lash out and do things that they normally wouldn't or make poor decisions when they're angry. And I think they're trying to look for that and stop it before it starts.
Well, I think you're right, Susan. Absolutely. They're trying to nip it in the bud because, well, let me say now, now it looks like apostasy is taking over for the most disfellowshippings. Now, prior to this time, it was always sexual sins, pornea, or it was fornication of some type. But it seems like they put that on the back burner And now they're looking at this idea of apostasy, or people being angry with the organization, and it's actually surpassing sexual sins in the Watchtower. Now, I say there's tons of anger going around right now in the organization. Why would that be? Why are people angry? Well, a lot of people are
This is
convinced.
Fury.
Go ahead, Chewy. What do you want to say? Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you was going to ask the question.
No, go ahead. You go ahead. Yep.
No, there's people out there that even the latest it was a governing body update or some kind of broadcasting or some crap, and it said on there he says they're talking about submission to the elders and all that, and the people, it's either something that I read or a YouTube video or something, and it said on there, now you may have had a little bit of doubt about the vaccine. You may have had I think it was Sanderson up there that said that, and he said, "Did you feel uncomfortable? Did you go ahead and comply with the society's direction? Did you do that, or did you just stay unvaxxed?" I mean, it was he was talking to the people that didn't get vaxxed, and they're the ones that are angry. There's some of them out there that are angry because they're pushing that vax on them. And that's a big part of it, I think.
Well, you're right. That's one of the things that Jehovah's Witnesses are angry about. A lot of people wanted to remain unvaxxed, but the Watchtower is pushing and pushing. You have to take it. Another thing that, believe it or not, a lot of them are angry over the generation and the overlapping generation. A lot of people are angry still over that. They still haven't got out of that situation. And they're just angry. They're just angry in general that, they're hearing stories about, donate to the Watchtower every single week. They go to a Zoom meeting, and now they're meeting in person, and they're still asking for money. So there's a big, deep problem in the Watchtower organization, and many elders and ministerial servants, they're waking up and they're leaving the Watchtower in droves. And that's why the Watchtower is appointing more and more young 20-year-old ministerial servants. They are having, well, I'll tell you who's having high-level talks. Now, the only ones that seem to be at least going along with the Watchtower and kind of looking like they really obey it all, and maybe they do, those would be the older baby boomers. That would be like me if I was still in the Watchtower. But the younger ones, forget about it. These young ones, they're having high-level talks with each other. They're meeting and they're talking about how they're going to get their way out of this organization. They get it. All right, you're on with us. Go ahead. You're on JW World News. Go ahead. Yes.
This Joe from Colorado. I find it interesting that they're asking about angry individuals. I just want to share one experience, and this was 24 years ago. I had just became appointed as an elder, and it was my first meeting, and it was a large body. We had 11 elders. I was one of 11 elders, and I didn't know what the meeting was about, but they were going to remove a brother from being the Kobe. Well, back then it was presiding overseer. He was still going to be an elder, and the elders actually got into an argument. The F word was going around the room. It scared me. That was my first elders meeting, and about 5 elders were telling each other F you, F you. I finally said, hey, we're supposed to be spiritual men. So I find it interesting that the circuit overseers want to know where who the angry ones are. Some of these elder bodies, there are some angry elder bodies, but you don't see that because it's behind the curtain.
Well, there you go. Yeah, I'm going to have to say you're right on that one. Absolutely. These guys, they're not the angels that you think they are. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. So anyways, very shortly here, we get Barbara Anderson. She's going to be coming on here with us. In the meantime, though, one of the biggest stories this week and it's been really floating around the internet on Facebook, YouTube. We know Michael, an ex-Jehovah's Witness, an elder, as a matter of fact, that stepped down. And Michael, as it was announced last week, committed suicide. Now, Michael came on the 6 screens twice and talked about his plight in the Watchtower. Michael was deeply hurt to the point as he took his own life. Michael was an elder, and he was a loyal Watchtower Jehovah's Witness. And Michael started seeing some errors. He started thinking about the overlapping generation and how silly and foolish that was, and how the Watchtower or David's plane could not even explain it. And also Michael he read Crisis of Conscience. He saw on YouTube the Australia Royal Commission. And what this did to Michael is he started having doubts. Very much like most of you guys listening into the program tonight, right? You started having doubts when you started seeing these things. So Michael approached the elders and he says, brothers, and he's an elder at the time. And so he says, fellow brothers, there's some problems here in the Watchtower. I'm finding that they're not really teaching the truth. I'm finding things they're doing behind our back. So, of course, they wouldn't listen to him. That's what you're going to get, right? They wouldn't listen to him. And what they did is they turned on him big time. And they made him, a real evil man. And Michael had, I believe it was 5 children, might have been 4, I'm not sure. But he had a pretty large family, and he was working 80 hours a week just to be able to keep his family in food and housing and clothing, working his butt off. And he's got these elders on his trail and doing nothing but bugging him. And they went to his wife. They went to Michael's wife and told her that she should get away from this man. This man he's spiritually sick, and he's going to bring you down and your children down, and it's best not to even have anything to do with him. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine? Well, I can imagine it, and I think you guys can do it too. They will break a marriage up in a heartbeat. If the person is not wanting, the mate that is now descending or leaving the Watchtower, they will go to the mate that's still loyally in and suggest that mate stay and leave the man or the spouse that's creating the issues. So that is something. So his marriage was falling apart. He loved his wife. Well, let me just put a little clip of Michael up and just to play a couple of minutes of him. He's been I want you to see him because he was I'll tell you what, it's very sad. It's very sad. We had Dan Clark that was on last week and his wife Angela on the Heart to Heart program. Dan was in tears, really. In fact, he was going to be traveling down this week to Tennessee. Dan lives in Idaho, and he was going to travel down to Tennessee to go down and help Michael and kind of get him back on the right course. But he died in the meantime. Dan was practically, and in fact, in tears. He was last Saturday night. Well, let me play a little clip of Michael. I just want you to see the clip so that he was a great man. Michael, rest in peace. And he loved Jesus. He loved the real truth. He knew the Watchtower was a false teacher. Let's play a little bit here. Let's see what happens. Okay, let's play it right now. Let's get it going. Hold on 1 second. Oh, come on. Just give us a second. We'll get this thing playing first. Oh, boy. I'll tell you, there's always something, I'll tell you.
I was supposed to do. It was in the congregation, if you weren't an elder or ministerial servant, you were basically worthless. So the only friends I was allowed to have would be people in the congregation. We were not allowed to have anyone that we could associate with. I did have a lot of fun at home with my parents, my sisters. There's 8 of us all together. But as I got older, I began to see the hypocrisy within the organization, and it started to unravel as I got older because I lost my father. And he had served as an elder many years. And when he became no use, he was forgotten about. And then 4 years later to the day that I lost him, I lost my mother. And so I began to be in a tailspin. But I kept doing everything right. My wife and I, we raised our children, our 4 children, as witnesses. And I was appointed as an elder. And I began to, my first elders meeting, I thought this has got to be the biggest joke in town. Because the first meeting, it was like a boys' club. And as I went on through with different judicial committees, and I saw how people were just basically a number with the way that the elders manual had you handle certain cases.
Well, we'll stop it right there for Michael, but that's Michael, a great man. Michael, we're going to miss you. We're really going to miss you, seriously. It's really a shame the Watchtower had to treat you the way they did. And many, many people are treated that way. Now, if you want to listen to Michael's whole story, go to JW History. JW History. Just put JW History Michael in YouTube, and it will come up and you can hear his whole conversation. Or you can also hear 2 conversations with Michael on the Heart to Heart program in Rick Ferren's SoundCloud. Just look for Heart to Heart and scroll down where you see the information on Michael. There's 2 programs in there. But anyways, Michael, we're going to miss you, and we hope that things can come out better down there in Tennessee. We do have a guest coming on here tonight. Her name is Barbara Anderson. I do believe she's on with us now. Barbara, are you on there with us? Hit *6.
I did already. I'm
there
on
you are.
you.
You're on the ball, Barbara. That's one thing I'll say about you. You've always been on the ball. I don't have to be chasing you around. Yeah, you're good. You're good. So anyway,
I needed that. I can push a button real easy. That's a real easy thing to do. So I don't need credit for that. What I need credit for is to feel better about Michael. I need every bit I can of credit if I can smile again, because I am really sad over this one.
yeah, it is sad. I didn't have time to play a lot of his clip, but I told the people where they could hear him. Well, what's of interest here, Barbara? Is this the first time you heard of a Jehovah's Witness leaving the organization and committing suicide, or even have you ever heard of many suicides, Barbara?
Well, not. I read other people writing that they have friends, relatives that commit suicide, but in my own personal life, no. In March, a very, very close friend of mine died, and he didn't care to live anymore. And so that was very difficult, and still is, because I knew the man since I was 14 years old, and he was 4 years old, his ex-witness. So, but this with Michael was totally unexpected, of course, because he was not, I didn't think that he was that depressed. He seemed like he kept it all together. And I didn't see him all that often. He lived, I would assume it's a mile and a half from us. And remember when he was born. So he was a rambunctious kid, and he grew into a happy giant. He was 6 foot, near to 6'7", I understand. I mean, I never measured him. I just knew when I talked to him, I had to look up. And he was extremely strong, man. And he worked for this city schools here for 22 years. He was a lovely man, always had a smile on his face, and the kids just loved him. He worked 2 jobs. and worked full time the weekdays, and then on the weekends he worked for a place that you can buy automobile parts. And he's a very, very dear person. It was a huge funeral. We didn't go because of the situation, and there were so many people from the community there, and the school. The situation. It was awful for the local people that have known him since he was born, and his father was here. Since he was, I guess, born. I mean, he was here for many, and his mom. He was related to Marley Cole. He was a cousin of Marley Cole. And if anybody remembers, Marley Cole wrote some books for the society. Jehovah's Witnesses, I think that was one of them. New World Society, I think. It's a long time ago. They were on the bestseller list back then, and Michael, he thought that he could get a hold of the research library of Marley Cole. Marley's been dead for quite a few years,
Well,
but he knew relatives who had
to
it.
the audience who Marley is, Barbara.
He was a writer, and he wrote, I believe it was 2 books at on Jehovah's Witnesses. I think it's so long ago. It's the 50s. I was new witness then and a youngster. And I remember that Marley Cole put a book out and the Watchtower approved of it. And I think it was called the New World Society in Action. No, that was a movie. It was something to do with New World Society, and I didn't have time to look it up.
Yeah, well, that's fine. But I mean, he was a person that wrote about Watchtower, so
he's a very loyal follower,
yeah.
and so Michael thought that he could maybe get his Marley's library, because Michael was reading everything he could on the Watchtower from the background of the Watchtower that Marley talked about. But Marley was a faithful witness along with his wife. I don't know anything about their children. I do know, though, interestingly, that when I was in the writing department, someone told me that Marley wrote a book, and that was in the 90s, and contributed the manuscript to the Watchtower, and they put it out under their name, but it was really written by Marley Cole. And so, Michael was around this family of witnesses, since his birth. His father was especially important in his life. I know his mother. I remember when she was only 16 years old, I believe, when we moved here, or maybe even less than that. But she was extremely kind, and that was the way that whole family that we knew. They were extremely nice people. In fact, when I was disfellowship, Michael's father was I was shopping in Lowe's, and I was checking out, and Michael's father was, I didn't know he was in the store, but he was checking out from another register.
We're back with
about 3 registers away, and he saw me, and he yelled out, "Hey, Barbara, how are you doing?" And that was extremely unusual, because there was another elder that worked at Lowe's, and whenever he saw me in the store, he'd go the other direction. But here, Michael's father was shopping, and Wayne, his name was Wayne, and he made a point to say hello to me. And I never forgot that. In fact, the last 4 years, when I left the organization for almost 4 more years, Joe, my husband, he was still an elder and in the organization. And so Wayne Michael's father and Joe used to go out in service together. And Joe, he thought the world of Wayne. He was a Southern gentleman and kind. And they were not happy with some of the elders here who were very dogmatic and pushy and opinionated. And that was not Wayne, nor was my husband. They were both very loving people. So I didn't, for the years we've been disfellowshipped, since 2002, even though Michael was living so close, I never saw him again, and heard only 2 years after he left that he actually left the organization. And he was very careful to not associate with Joe and I very much, and because he didn't want to make difficulty for a lot of different reasons. And since we're known amongst the few witnesses that are left around here as extremely wicked apostates, he was careful. He's once in a while he dropped me a little note through Messenger, see how I was doing, how Joe was.
Well, everyone certainly is concerned for him. Now, I talked to you today, and I wanted you to come on the 6 Screens tonight. Now, you live in, you don't mind me telling people where you live, do you?
No.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, she lives right outside of Chattanooga. It might even be in Chattanooga, Tennessee, right outside.
No. Oh, no, we're an hour, a little over an hour from Chattanooga. Chattanooga is, it's over the mountain, and we have to go that way east. So it's northeast of us. And Nashville is the same amount of time to get to Nashville as Chattanooga, but it is northwest. We're above Huntsville, Alabama, about an hour about.
All right.
So, and this is where Michael was raised. So
yeah, well, that's why I wanted to come on tonight, have you come on. Now, I lived in the South. I lived in Florida, and I have to say that Southern elders, they are different than Northern elders. They are. I witnessed it myself. I lived in Florida for 10 years, and I find like it's a good old boys club with the elders down south. Maybe some people would disagree with me, but that's what my thoughts were. But what you mentioned to me today, I got thinking about it, and I says, Barbara could be pretty much correct on this. Now, you said that the elders in that area, you knew a lot of them. I mean, you knew a lot of people from the Watchtower. Mm-hmm. But so some of these elders, they kind of went astray, renegade. I don't know the word we would use, but you feel that they kind of separated their feelings toward people who have doubts differently than the way the Watchtower did. What would you like to say about that?
Well, I have so many experiences. I'm trying to figure out which one is to use, but the Watchtower has very strict rules and regulations as to dealing with different issues, as we all know. And the Watchtower gets blamed for the things that really their appointed members do. They're the cause of the problems, and this is what Michael felt. In fact, if everyone has watched his review of the 12-minute one that is on Watchtower history, and Michael talks about these elders. And some of the elders in this area from years past they're deceased, and they were very good men. I don't know these men, but I do know that from what Michael said in the interview, that he did not agree with them, and he was very specific on interviews with other on the internet with other folk. that some of these elders were they were rude, and also they said sexual things, and that just greatly offended him, because Southern people are usually not into that kind of thing, especially in a church or some sort of that. And Michael saw it all, and he was very unhappy with that. And so listening to this 12 minutes is really insightful to see how that there were two specific men. I don't know a lot about this. I know what he said, and also he talked to the man who, with someone else, runs the Watchtower History YouTube thing, and they were texting back and forth since last October. And when Michael was talking about these men and how they behaved, and he actually had 3 restraining orders against the elders because of their behavior. They called him mentally diseased and told the family he was. There was nothing nice about these men. And Michael wasn't disfellowshipped at this point. They were trying to figure out how to disfellowship, and that's why we stayed away. I didn't want anyone to ever get anything that they could point to that made him associate with apostates, and that they could claim he was, So these guys, they were so rude. His children, in fact, the smallest one, she's, I think the oldest is 19, and he's got 4. And the youngest, I'm not sure, but I think she's probably 10, maybe, I don't know. But she said to her dad, please don't get this fellowship because I can never talk to you again. And, that's not the society's policy. And the families can talk to one another. They just, if the adults are disfellowshipped, or if they were a grown child in the, a mature child in the house who's been disfellowshipped in their teen years or something, as long as they don't talk spiritual things. And under certain circumstances, of course, the father, if he's a witness, can talk to a child about spiritual things under certain, as I said, circumstances. But in the Watchtower, the new shepherding book, which is not that new anymore, but the updates are there. They say it ever since 2010, and in fact, it was in the Attention Elders book. Pay attention, the old one, and they all say the same thing, that families can associate. They just don't talk about spiritual things, and or they don't. The one who is disfellowshipped doesn't persist in criticizing the disfellowshipping decision. And I'm actually reading that from the...
Well, you're right. I've gone in, I checked that too. It's right in the Shepherd, the Flock book.
Yeah.
So,
and not even to call, they're not even supposed to call a judicial hearing when they disassociated or disfellowship one continues to associate with their relatives. It says that. And it says, unless there is persistent, and there is where they italicize the word spiritual, unless there's persistent spiritual association. Well, if you're associating with, I'm disfellowshipped, if I was associating with a close relative and they kept, and they're a witness, and they kept saying to me, why aren't you coming back in the organization or something like that? I simply can say, hey, wait a minute, you shouldn't talk about spiritual things with me, or we can't associate together. So you have the agreement not to discuss that type of thing. And Michael knew that. And for them to say to his children that they can, if he gets this fellowship, they can't ever talk to him again. This is what was really nauseating, and he tried his best. He was a wonderful father. He At the funeral, I'll tell you, half town was there. The kids loved him. His funeral, the obituary talked about how beloved he was, working at the schools. And he was studying to, already he had 1 degree. He was studying to be a teacher. And yet he worked 80 hours a week. He was an outstanding person. But things went downhill at the end from what I gather.
Let me just recap here a little bit with the flock book. Now, if you're a disfellowshipped, and I guess Michael never was disfellowship, right?
No, he wasn't, and that's why they had the funeral at this big funeral home, and of course he committed suicide. And the Watchtower, they said years ago they wouldn't permit an elder to conduct a service of a disfellowship person or somebody who committed suicide, but that's not the case any longer. They do certainly make recommendations, and that is to be taken into consideration. But the witnesses made a big deal, like Michael was acceptable, was a great loyal witness, and put it in the obituary. And what's fascinating to me is I called the funeral home to ask who was conducting the service. I'm going to make sure or find out anyway who was doing it. And the woman that I talked to, she said, "Let me look it up." And what she read to me was the same thing that was in the newspaper and on the internet, same obituary, which said he was a baptized Jehovah's Witness. So she said to me, because I said, "Is this going to be conducted by the church?" And she said, because I didn't know who I was talking to, so I was using their lingo. She said, "Well, I'm not sure, but I would think so." And so as we talked a little bit more, she said, "Are you of she was hemming and hawing. Do you believe like Michael?" And I said yes, because I did. The way Michael was about his faith. And she said, "Well, I think the brothers are going to do the." And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm talking to a witness. And so she said, "Well, I would think they are going to do it, but I'm not from this town. I come from another town over, so I'm really not sure, but I would think because he was a witness." And then she said, "I'm a Jehovah's Witness," and I felt like saying, "Yeah, I figured that out." So they did do the services. I don't know anything more about it than that, and but I do know a little bit, and only through the grapevine. They're keeping it very, very secret how he died, and not a whisper. And I feel so sad over all of this, because what I have been told, that the last days of his life were terrible, just terrible. And Joe and I were just absolutely broken up over this.
Oh no, it was in fact he came on the 6th screen just a while back, probably less than a month ago, and he was on twice on one of our programs here we call Heart to Heart, and we were just on the edge of the seat. We couldn't believe what the Jehovah's Witnesses were doing to him, but it seems so odd that they just are allowing this situation to continue on. They even had him, like you say, even sponsored by the witnesses during his funeral. But the point that I wanted to emphasize here is the fact that the Shepherd's Book, and you're dead on, you're spot on. Michael was being told by the local elders down there, at least they told his wife, that he was a bad person, spiritually bad person. And it would be best that, you kind of stay away from him. Now, I don't know if that is Watchtower's truest policy, but that did happen in his life. And I know the Watchtower would love to have people who have a mate that's going spiritually renegade to disconnect. But, at some point, you can't come on and encourage people to do that, because, that's really heinous. The government would look into something like that. But in Michael's case, it was happening. But, the Watchtower, they take a different position. So I don't know if these elders will ever be right.
Well,
yeah.
Well, remember, if you're not related, they definitely say that you can't associate it with them if you're disfellowshipped. So, but if you're related, you can. You just don't talk about it. The witnesses and Michael was being shunned from every direction, and he didn't do anything yet. They couldn't even prove he was an apostate, and they did hear from what I was told by the fellow Jeff, who's put that Michael's the 12 minutes, the interview, the last one he did, because see, they talked together, and so that's what's on this whole hour is actually the text of their conversations, and that's where you read how awful. Well, Michael is just absolutely stunned. He said, from childhood, I had friends everywhere, and now I have none. And the loneliness, and then to be told by his wife that she was going to leave him, and this whole thing was just. He mentions this. It's not something I read. What between him, the text between him and Jeff, and everybody can read it. It's on my website too, and I would tell you that the blurb we put under the picture of Michael, and you click on it and you go to the YouTube, but we put a blurb underneath it, and this is what we said as the Watchtower. This is the last paragraph. As the Watchtower followed the standard moves to disfellowship him, as they had. Now, this is not the Watchtower. The Watchtower representatives, and he didn't have a judicial hearing. They were trying to get him to one, but he wasn't going. So it's the traditional. Followed the standard moves to disfellowship him as they had his best friend. That's also discussed because this was just horrible what went through his best friend, Jonathan. And you'll read that. And Jonathan tried to kill himself. And so it says, we are told how his wife was encouraged to leave, the elders telling his family he is mentally diseased, being told his children would never be able to speak to him again if he was disfellowshipped, and they should select a new spiritual dad, and elders saying she should leave him, he would marry her instead. Michael wanted his story to be made known, a tragic story of being shunned to death. And if that isn't the truth of the matter,
well, is it true? I mean, just so I get it straight. So one of the elders really was kind of flirting with his wife, right?
Absolutely, and that is why he had a restraining order. But that's for Michael's story, and between him and Jeff, which you can read that. He put the text there. Jeff was one of the last ones to speak with, and Jeff was never a witness, but he knew the witness stuff inside and out because he was raised with, his father was a Bible student, and Jeff became fascinated with that type of religion in the 19th century, and has done a lot of research on it. He does research for Jim Penton. And the new book that's out on Rutherford's coup Jeff was helpful to the author of that book, which is a 600-page discussion of Rutherford's takeover illegally of the organization. So Jeff, Michael trusted him. Michael and he were almost like brothers.
Oh.
And so it's Jeff's story here, and I think that there was interaction, close interaction, that Jeff's, Michael's wife knew he was talking to Jeff, but the thing about that was that why shouldn't she be not that unhappy about it? And from what I gather, it wasn't that she was terribly unhappy, because Jeff was never a witness. So he wasn't talking to a elder, or an ex-elder, and who was an apostate. He wasn't associating. He was associating with a businessman who knew a lot of history about that whole movement since the 19th century and what led up to the Watchtower.
Well, what we'll do is we'll get people. I mean, we could go on all night about Michael, and would like to be able to do that, because we love the man. But if they want to find out more, they can go to our website, right? WatchtowerDocuments.com.
.com, and it's right there on the as it opens up, and you can read underneath the where we kind of broke down the story a little bit, but then you go to listen to the man. He's articulate. He was studying to be a school teacher, and he would have been had this not happened. And
let's get the people over there and listen to that. And
you'll be shocked. I was shocked when I listened to those 12 minutes. Yeah. I was absolutely, and he is this is not a dummy, I'm telling you. This is a very beautiful man.
Well, he was. In fact, I could tell.
What was done to him was unreasonable.
I got connected to him too when he came on here, Barbara. Yeah, so let's send him over there. We're running out of time here. I want to be able to get you to speak about some other things, because we're being pressed for time.
Okay, but before you do that, I want to make a point.
Yeah, go ahead.
And it's important. Please let me do this.
Go ahead.
If the Watchtower does not approve of what was done to Michael, I know that. I worked with them. And one of the ex-Jehovah's Witnesses had two elders calling on her constantly, and she couldn't get them to stop calling on her. And what she did is she got a lawyer, and she had the lawyers fax a letter to the legal department, and within an hour, the lawyer got a fax back from the Watchtower, and they had already notified the elders to cease and desist. If you're not wanted on the property, and would get a restraining order and do something legal, they said, you elders do not go on this woman's property. And they knew they had a lawsuit on their hand, because these elders are their employees, actually. They're appointed by the society. And so in court, that's what makes the problem for the society. What the elders do, the Watchtower gets blamed because of the term agency. They're agents of the Watchtower. So in Michael's case, he tried this, and it didn't work. So in this case, I'm going to say, let's be a little kinder about the Watchtower here, because some of these elders are absolutely to blame for too many of these cases. And that's why Michael left the whole thing, because of their way that they talked to the girls. Any of the women who got into difficulty with fornication or whatever, and the elders wanted to know everything. That's the last elders meeting he ever attended, because those men were talking like that. So, and the Watchtower tells the elders then not to do that. It's in the shepherding book and was in the other book before that. So, we put the blame where the blame is here in this case. And I bet you they didn't appreciate when they heard this, and are talking to those elders from New York over this situation. And it was uncalled for treatment. And this wife of Michael's, she is the one who has to, because when she went back, when the Zoom meetings were, you know, they still are in existence, but you could go back to the Kingdom Hall, that's when it all fell apart. I know that for sure. And she went to the Kingdom Hall and they started on her. And my source tells me that's after that it was all downhill. To leave him, constantly leave him. That's all she heard. So, you know, it's just too many things came together at this time. And if Michael had just you know, so many suicides, they can be prevented if someone can get through that time period with someone else's help, maybe, and then they never try again. That's what I heard. Statistics show they never try again.
It's a sad state of affairs, Barbara, and I appreciate you commenting and giving us much as you know on the subject. Now, if they want to learn more, go to your page, watchtowerdocuments.com. You can read all about it.
Yeah, everything is there. That also go over to Watchtower History. Jeff and another man have that, and they were kind enough to let me pick it right up off of there.
They're great guys. They're great guys. They do a great job. But now look at what we got. We got about probably, and Nathan, if you're on with us, just hang in to us. We'll bring you on about 15 minutes later here. Don't you worry about it. But you'll be coming on about 9 o'clock, so just stay in with us. We got Barbara Anderson on with us, and what I want to do, Barbara, we're going to switch some gears here. We're going to go. Now, you are a very instrumental person in at least spilling the beans on the child sexual abuse in the Watchtower. I'm going to play a little clip, so just kind of relax a little bit here, probably a 2 or 3 minute clip. If you appearing on the Dateline show, and the people on YouTube here tonight, we are broadcasting on YouTube and Facebook. They will see the clip. If you're on a radio network, you will hear the clip. But just so that we can remind people, this happened back in, I think it was 2001. So let's play the clip. 2002.
2002.
All right, 2002. So we'll get that correct. So let's just go over here now. I'm going to play the clip. So hang in here with us. Let me just see if I get this up and ready to go, which it is. So we're going to play the Dateline clip. Let's listen in.
The church apparently never notified police. Bird, now in prison, admits he molested other children until 2003.
The policies and procedures enacted by Jehovah's Witnesses protect pedophiles rather than protect the children.
Barbara Anderson, a former Jehovah's Witness, is an outspoken critic of the church on this issue. She says the church prefers to keep an abuser's confession confidential, treating abuse more as a sin than as a crime.
They do not report child abuse to the authorities unless it's mandated by a state for the clergy to do so.
The church declined to speak on camera, but in a statement wrote that it does not condone or protect child molesters, that cases within the church are rare, that members have the right to report the crime to authorities, and that church elders comply with child abuse reporting laws. But not all states require clergy to report child sexual abuse. That means some abusers get caught only if victims finally come forward, like Frederick McLean's accusers, who now want this alleged molester taken off the streets. Lisa Myers, NBC News.
Well, okay, we'll stop it right there, Barbara. But no, there it is. So there you were, 2002, on the Dateline program, nationwide. That really shook a lot of people up, including myself. I was still a witness at the time. And I really applaud you for coming on. That's when it all started, Barbara. Now, we're proud of you that you did that. That had to be a very difficult thing to do because you had so many friends at Watchtower. You had so many people that you knew and you loved. And now they're looking at you like, geez, Barbara, why are you spilling the beans? It must have been hard, Barbara.
Yes, it was. Right after Dateline, our son went and his wife went up to headquarters then in Brooklyn and saw one of the administrative heads in the service department, who was an old friend of ours, actually. And, of course, our son was at Bethel 16 years and left to have children. So so he went to see this man, and that guy told our son that so many people watch Dateline, that witnesses that did, and left the organization. He said thousands of people left the organization because of what your mother did. And they are going to be destroyed at Armageddon, and your mother's responsible for it. And that's when the shunning started by our son and daughter-in-law and all their family, and of course all our friends. But I stayed behind the scenes for when I knew that we were going to go forward, and that started at January 2001 when we made contact with Dateline through an interesting way. I put on my website this week. Last Saturday was my 20th anniversary, the 28th of May, since I was on Dateline. So when I was on the program, making plans for the program, and there were so many things going on until it aired, that I kept a diary. And that diary has been in my document stuff. I wrote down everything that happened that had to do with Dateline daily, and for over a year. And so then a few years later, I typed it all up and then forgot about it until my 20th anniversary. So I said, well, I'll go back and reread it. And it was so interesting, even to me, and it has information in there that you wouldn't find out from anywhere else. And so it's called Barbara Anderson's Diary, and it's 10 pages of typed notes that I had handwritten that I typed up years ago. And so you'll see how it all played out, and how about I stayed in the background until Dateline, and I was busy behind the scenes contacting people, talking to newsmen, whatever. It was supposed to air in November of 2001, but because of 9/11 happening, then everybody had their attention on that mess. So they put it off until the following May. And I even have information in there that what Jarrah said. I have information from France and the support behind the scenes for me from the French branch, and how this information got to us. And it was quite an interesting time. And I think you'll find that there's stuff in there that you never would have expected to read. So, I went forward to child abuse, and still here all these years, I'm still at it. But we got to remember that it was true what I said about the Watchtower and child abuse. But remember this. The society does absolutely try to obey the law, and otherwise they can get into difficulty. I'm not supporting them. I'm telling a fact. And so when they say that people can report their own abuse to the authorities, the problem was that too many people said, oh, you don't want to bring reproach on Jehovah's name. Well, same with other churches that did the same thing. The largest church in or organization, religious organization in the United States is the Southern Baptist Church, and all the information is coming out about them. They did the same thing for years and years, and but they hid it, and they hid documents and whatever. all of this is the way that they handle these things for years. And but things are changing. And remember this: when you with child abuse, if your state doesn't regulate and say that according to the penitent privilege, their laws, if the state says that it has to be reported and specifies all the details, you do what the state requires. And the Watchtower says that when it comes to child abuse, if an elder goes forth in a state where it doesn't require a minister to go forth and go to the authorities when he knows of child abuse, he can get in trouble if the victim doesn't want this to go to the authorities. That happens more than you ever know, because many families of victims and victims do not want to report. In fact, the statistics, 91% of people generally don't report child abuse. They don't want the neighbors to know and the rest of the family to know. That's the biggest problem. And so the Watchtower got sued by victims because the elders reported it to the authorities when the victim did not want it, and the state didn't require it. You know, it's there's always something going on with the law. Remember, there's really no justice. My own attorney said this to me one day. He said, "There's no justice. There is the law, just the law." And so with all of this, all these different laws from the different states, I try to learn about this over the years. And then if somebody asks advice, I try to give them the right advice or tell them where to go. But you can't blame some things on the Watchtower. I think it was 2020 or 19 or 20, where the society came out with an article and said that, you know, the congregation they can disfellowship someone for a gross sin, but they're not obligated, and in no way should they prevent a victim of a crime from reporting it to the authorities. But in the congregation, they can make a decision, and that is to disfellowship or not to disfellowship, which of course depends upon how repentant that the perpetrator is.
Well, hey, Barbara,
so we might not agree with all of this, but they get the right to make rules.
Well, we've got so many people here that want to talk to you, Barbara. If you don't mind, I want to bring them in. We are pushed for time here. We can only take so much time on this, but let's see if we can bring some people in. Let's have let's have you answer their questions, and let's see what they have to say. Go ahead. You're right on now. You're right on with us. Hit *6. Barbara Anderson, you know her. She's been on the Dateline program. She wants to say hello to you. If you got a question for Barbara, why don't you come in?
Hey, Rick.
Yes, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, this is Dan. Hey, I just wanted to add on a little bit to the story to Barbara Anderson. She did a great job. And I did hear from a relative, and I did hear what happened. And basically what happened was they won this tug of war, Watchtower. And I think they were after him because he was exposing a den full of... and anyway, what happened, I confronted him after a battle because he would call me and say, "Hey, Dan, my wife's coming back." And he'd start crying. And I'd be, "All right, man, all right. I love my family," like Barbara Anderson said. I love my family. But then what happened was, like Barbara Anderson said, they pushed and they pushed and they pushed. And I think they were pissed off at him. But they pushed, and his wife confronted him and said, "I'm divorcing you, and you're never going to see your kids again." That's when he shot himself.
Wait, he went to his work.
He went to his work. He went to his work, and he went out on the road, and that's in the middle of the road, and that's where he did it. And yeah, I don't want to go there. But anyway, I don't want to say the relative, but there was a relative that reached out to me through Facebook, very disturbed, very disturbed. She says, how come you can't leave an organization? Why can't you leave a religious organization without this happening, without being, told you're just junk? Like they said, he was brain dead. They called him every name. But anyway, I'm very close to that area right now. I'm almost to Nashville, so I'm probably an hour away. I may slip through there to Tullahoma or wherever it's at up there. I was going to see Richard and talk to him, but he gave me the thumbs up and said, I'm looking forward to it. He said, yes, sir. And but then he got the thing with his wife to his face. I'm leaving you, and you're never going to see your kids again. How many people could stand up to that? How many people can lose everything because of a religion? But I think they were pushing him. He was exposing a den full of pedophiles, and he even told me he wanted me to call in at the memorial because there was a pedophile that wasn't removed. And no. And so he told me that he wanted me to call the Kingdom Hall and warn the people. So, I just think he was pushed into this. But anyway, I just wanted to say, enjoyed your conversation, Barbara Anderson. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you for the additional information.
Yeah, well, Dan was pretty close to him. In fact, you had Michael on twice, right?
Yeah, we had him on twice, and I was kind of following his story, and I felt so good because he'd come back together. He'd win her back. Like she said, he worked a couple of jobs, and his main thing was family. He says, I love my family. I love my family. Nothing better come between my kids. Like you guys said, he did all the right things. He put the restraining orders. He did everything. He couldn't take that blow to the psyche, which is, I'm leaving you, and you're never going to see your kids. I mean, he wouldn't have nothing else to live for. I mean, he was for his family. And so it was a tragedy for all of us. I was blown away. Jeff Boulay was blown away. We were all talking to Richard, hooking him up with people, telling people to give him a call. Several people called him. Several people I know called Michael. And I keep saying Richard, but Michael. Several people called him and were trying to encourage him and, really trying to pick him up. But honest to God, they won the tug of war. They had it out for him, and they won. They convinced his wife he was garbage. And I told the PMO today that wrote me, I said, hey, be slow about leaving because you have no idea. I won't mention his name, but he said he's not going. He's using the COVID as an excuse for not going to the meetings. But he just told me, I said, hey, man, take it real slow because when you leave, you're dead to them. And I mean, you're dead to them. And you have no idea, and I had no idea when I left, that the lights were out. There was no going back, even if I tried to go back, Anyway, that's it, guys. It happened that quick.
Well, I understand that. But I have to say, in many of these cases, as I lived with an elder for many, but Joe was an elder for 50 years. And I worked in the legal department for 6 months while I was in the writing department. I also assisted the service department, and then I was in the writing department. I studied stuff constantly because I was a researcher for the Proclaimer's book, and then I became the researcher for the Awake crew. I knew the judicial hearings. I knew how all of that operated. I talked with men who were writers. If I had questions, I asked them. When I got a letter in 1997 from the Awake editor, when they turned all the child abuse stuff over to the legal department, that the service department wouldn't be involved in it, and the writing department wouldn't be, he said, who here, now that we have it in the right hands, and who here is responsible for the 5 years of inactivity, that more Jehovah's Witness children would be molested by Jehovah's Witnesses molesters. they were trying to get the handle on this, as well as other organizations were trying, and it wasn't working out. I think that these men who lived in, 30, 40 years at headquarters, and they really weren't alert enough to see that the variety of people coming in the organization were problematic. Many of them were. In fact, the Awake editor told me one day, he said, if the elders don't continue to not follow the rules, we're going to hang them out to dry. And I knew they did. I knew that on the phone they would be talking to circuit overseers about elders, certain elders. But they these men inherited or joined a religion that used dogma that was 3,500 years old, and they tried to apply it to a modern age, and it just wasn't working. And they also spread the message that we were a brotherhood and we loved one another constantly. Well, it's impossible that everybody should, from different backgrounds, genetic code, all kinds of problems. We saw each other at the Kingdom Hall. We didn't know what went on behind closed doors in people's homes. They were still the same type of people they were before they became witnesses. And so, the message was one and the reality was another. And they were trying to work around it. Then, I'll tell you, the people I knew at headquarters, there were some screwballs there and bad people. But these people that I worked with, so many of them were good people and sincerely in love with their religion. And they tried to do the right thing. But it was out of their hands because you're just dealing with too many different people. It's amazing that it worked the way it worked as well as it did, which wasn't that great, because elders never told all the people in the congregation how many cases they were handling. We just thought that was all hunky-dory. Everything was great, but it wasn't great, and elders had secrets. And it's always been this way in these religions. Like I said about the Southern Baptist Church carried the secrets. Now they're talking that the church, this is the apocalypse. That's the headlines of the news on the Southern Baptist Church, which it has their headquarters in Nashville. And they see it as apocalypse to their organization, and it's child abuse. This is what I've been saying for years. The child abuse is bringing down and has brought down to what the Watchtower is today, not theology. People have been critical of the Watchtower and theology for years. That didn't make any difference in lay friends. Difference in theology and personality. They didn't bring the organization down. Child abuse. That is the worst possible thing you can name associated with an organization.
Well, the thing is, Barbara,
it wasn't evil people. It was stupid people that did this.
But this is Rick.
Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I understand. I got it, Barbara. I got it. We get it. But what I'm asking you at this point, there's this feeling I have to the Watchtower that, there's child abuse. And there's child abuse in the Southern Baptist as well. But at least they came out, and on their website, I was on it this week, it lists all of the pedophiles. Now you saw who those pedophiles were.
I did.
Now they've
been battling this for years. I talked to some people. I talked to a newsman the other day. They have been battling this for years.
Yes, they have.
This was another organization that was hired to go forward with all the facts.
But Barbara, the Watchtower's hidden this database since you came on.
I agree with you. I don't find it.
No,
I agree with you. As I said, they're stupid. They were all stupid. Maybe because they didn't have children. That was the whole deal there. There were not parents running this organization. The only one that was a parent back when I was at headquarters was Schroeder, and he had a son. Yeah. And so, and that That was the that
Yeah,
there
well,
were problems
that's
there.
another issue. We won't be able to, but
Yeah.
what we do is we have like a number of programs. So, geez, I wish I could keep you on longer, but we're running into trouble here with timing. I do have another
Yeah,
guest.
sure.
I got another guest that's coming on.
Rick?
Nathan. Yes, Nathan.
Yes. I will happily give up my time for Barbara.
Hi, Nathan.
How you doing, Barbara?
Oh, I'm great. I'm okay. I'm just, like I say, sad.
I have to say, though, that I was shocked to hear that you were living with an elder during the same time that you were married to Joe. Shocking revelation.
Yeah, right. They were two different people. He'd go into elder mode, and then he was husband mode. Oh, my goodness. So good to hear your voice after all these years.
Oh.
Well, Nathan, in fact, Barbara, Nathan came out. How long have you been out of the witnesses, Nathan?
Well, close to 50 years.
All right. So last week you came out, and why don't you tell the audience once again? I mean, you've been basically, I won't call you a PMO. I mean, you had more issues to pick with the Watchtower than we can think of, but nonetheless, you still wanted to remain secret, so to speak. So why don't you tell the audience tonight what your real name is and where you live?
Sure. My real name is James Hill. I lived in New York City and Queens. I attended the Sunnyside and Middle Village congregations in Queens. I pioneered in the Middle Village congregation. I was a ministerial servant to the Middle Village congregation, and I gave my first and last 1-hour talk in the Middle Village congregation before I left.
So you're talking about 50 years. Yeah, boy.
Yeah. And it was over the issue of child abuse. I found out that we had a pedophile in the Middle Village congregation, and in order to protect the great and mighty Jehovah, the decision was made to do nothing about this person. He wasn't put on reproof. He wasn't disfellowshipped. He continued to be called on to lead the congregation in prayer. He instructed the congregation from the platform, and I just saw it. To me, it showed me in one fell swoop that the Watchtower was not the righteous organization that they had presented themselves as being for the time that I was familiar with them, which was from about the age of 7, roughly, to the into my 20s.
Now, you and I talked this week. I think it might have even been today, but we talked, and the reason why you said, that's it, I've had enough, 50 years of not really hiding, but I don't want people to know who I am. But what was the catalyst? What was the catalyst, Nathan, that got you to reveal your name last week?
Well, I had, Barbara, I don't want to take too much time from you. And
no, this is your time. I had mine.
Well, but I think you've got much more interesting things to say than I have.
Oh.
But to answer Rick's question, it was a combination about what consequences there might be for some of my ex-JW apostate activity, but I also had 2 brothers who were witnesses and still are today. My twin brother John attended Bethel for a period of time. Strangely enough, he's never spoken much about how great his Bethel experience was. And my younger brother, David Hill, is, I've been told, an elder in a Brooklyn congregation. I think it's Bay Ridge, but I'm not sure. I had a falling out years ago with my mother, who, insisted that we be, raised as Jehovah's Witnesses. And it was only after she died, and my brothers she died in August, and I didn't find out about her death until sometime later in the fall, when I got an email from a friend who heard about it coincidentally and sent me his condolences. And then I called my brothers, and they said, yeah, Mom died in August, and we felt you didn't want to know. So they went above and beyond the Watchtower's advice about, having no contact with apostates other than for essential family business. But our relationship for many years had not been a very positive one. And so at this point in my life, I decided that I would come out, tell people who I was, where I was from, etc.
Well, we're all proud of you. I got so many people writing me this week and really saying that was wonderful that you did that, Nathan. And for those listening in, Nathan Natus is the name that he goes by. He was pretty much a prolific writer on JWN discussion board. That's Simon's board, Simon Green's board. And he wrote on there for many, many years, one of the first people to write on that forum. And his name was Nathan Natus. What's your real name now, Nathan?
James Hill.
James Hill.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you
that. On JWD, I've got more than 11,000 posts, but more than 10,000 of them are nonsense. So don't be too impressed by numbers.
Funny. Yeah, I would like to ask him a question if I could.
Sure, Barbara.
Okay. Did you know the congregation, Astoria congregation?
Yes.
Right? Okay. Yeah. I received through somebody a few years ago material it was actually material that was stored in the attic and was taken out of the files. So whoever cleaned out the files, they would not destroy the stuff. And this is the 70s. And they would put it in this black bag. So when they remodeled the hall, one of the elders took these bags home and went through it. Well, that man left the organization. He was an elder. Well, anyway, do you know the name Plumhoff? Howard Plumhoff. He was a congregation servant of Astoria for years. And there's correspondence. He was at Bethel in the service department and congregation servant in Astoria. So he would write to the service department on behalf of Astoria, and they were going through a child abuse case. And I believe the date is 1970. I'm looking through the letters, and he was the person. A little girl, she accused some fella of abusing her, and they didn't do anything about it. He wrote the society. I have a copy of his Plumhoff's writing himself. He writes the service department, and so not much is at that time. It just went in the records. But then there's another letter where Plumhoff says that this fella who was accused, he was accused again. And this time they disfellowshipped him. So here we are in the 70s, and they were seeing these issues. But of course, Plumhoff was angry in the letter about this man doing that. There's another letter where one of the, and I believe that molester was one of the servant body back then too. And there's another letter about one of the witnesses who was exposing himself on the train. And I mean, here, most of us as witnesses, and of course I was an active witness in the 70s, we never dreamed that these kind of things were going on. My husband even said, I never really dealt with a case of child abuse because I never asked the right questions. He said there'd be families, father, mother, and kids, and their kids were rebellious, and there were all kinds of problems. He said, I never dreamed there could be incest in the home. Many of the cases are incest. And so he said, I didn't ask the right questions because I thought everybody in Jehovah's organization would never do a thing like that. So we lived in a fantasy world, and the records show it. And I have copies of original letters from the society to Plum Hall back. And the disfellowshipping card is here. So on that man. So Plum was a very nice man at Bethel. He was the former circuit overseer that was called into the service department. He and his wife were very fine people. And so sincere and such believers. And they tried so hard, like we all did, because we were believers. But it all came to naught because it wasn't true. And at the same time, we didn't know that they were dealing with these awful situations. But back then, nobody did anything about it. It wasn't until the Women's Lib organization started speaking up, and that was in the late 70s. And then focusing on these organizations. Why, Mr. Zalkins, the attorney that handles most of the cases that I refer to, he's handling the Boy Scouts and the college, university, the rapes, and how the universities hid all this stuff for years and years. So I make no excuses for them. I really don't. But the facts are the facts. It was terrible. And well, what are you going to do? We do our best, and we revealed what the Watchtower was doing. They made terrible mistakes because of stupidity, and I'll say it over and over again. They never dreamed. These men are so isolated mentally and never dreamed that what was going on in families and how, and they didn't address it correctly, did they? The Catholic Church the same way. So, for what it's worth.
Right. I knew some individuals who were in the Astoria congregation at one time, but they moved into the territory of Sunnyside, and that's when I got to know them.
Well, let me tell you something else. My mother and father were married in Queens, and both my mother came from Europe, and my father was second generation Polish. My mother was Polish. And they were Catholic. They married in the Catholic Church in a small service. And a year later, the priest that married them was, he was killed in a car accident with his mistress. So that's my background in the church. My parents both weren't active in the church because of the things that they had seen. My father was an altar boy, and he always said to us, well, his duties consisted of taking the money out of the church and putting it in the trunk of the priest's car, and taking the alcohol out of the trunk of the car and taking it into the rectory. So they were disenchanted. Of course, in Europe, my mother's side of the family, her father was excommunicated from the Catholic Church for reading the Bible. But they were loyal in the sense that they thought, well, they're Catholic. We were Catholic in name only. We would go to church on Easter. But the Watchtower people, they answered all our questions and showed us scriptures, and we thought there was a better world, a just world. And so nothing turned out the way they said, and look at how many years since I've been saying that. But the background of Jehovah's Witnesses is Puritan, and you can't get around it. It's an organization that basically their belief system is a rerun from Puritan, and so they're long gone, and some of their today there are little organizations that are the offshoots of that. And all the dreams that we all had for a better life and living forever on a paradise earth, it's the people that hang on to that in this organization, Jehovah's Witnesses, are old people. The young people they're not interested in that. They're just hanging on because of their parents. But you look around the Kingdom Hall, even before the pandemic, it's just white-headed people, right? Old people. And so when they die off, the organization dies with them. So no wonder they're going a different route and establishing a media organization to continue. I have some very fascinating information that I'll be putting out about the Watchtower in the near future, and I'll send it around to everybody so I can put it on their channels and you know, their discussion boards and whatever. It doesn't necessarily mean that my name will be on it. I have information. We use information to set people free of the fantasies, free of the a belief system that is only basically in people's head, in their heart maybe, but too many years have gone by and nothing they've ever said has been fulfilled.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Look how long ago you and I talked on the discussion board, and look at 20 years have passed since I started with Dateline, and I've known about the child abuse since 1992, end of 91 at headquarters, and then I worked when I came back here. I was 4 more years working for the society, not paid, of course, doing research for them and doing the child abuse stuff. As they wanted to do some changes. But there were people, like I said, they're very good people, and some that were evil. Absolutely, but that's everywhere. Everywhere you go, you have the good and evil. And sometimes the evil win.
Well, Barbara,
many times.
We've got a lot of people here. Maybe they want to say hello to you. We got Nathan on with us. Nathan, don't you worry. We might be able to keep this program going longer. I'm still looking for the next program to come up. I haven't seen Reese yet. So anyways, let's open up the lines. We have Nathan Natus on with us. James Pierce, he's on with us here tonight as well.
James Hill.
I'm sorry. Did I say Pierce? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm doing 6 screens here at once.
That's another one of my pseudonyms.
Yeah, I'm sorry I said that, but no, I'm looking at some other stuff here. I'm trying to do 6 screens at once. But anyways, we got James on with us. We've got Barbara. Why don't we open up the lines? I'd like
Barbara, I had one question for you, and then I'll let the audience have you. I heard recently that in the database that the Watchtower maintains on pedophiles, they also have subdivisions for people who have tendencies toward violence and other unacceptable behavior. In your experience, is that true?
Yes. You're talking to me, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Yes. I was in the service department one day on an errand, and I'm trying to think of the name. Don Adams was the president of the one of the corporations in Watchtower. His wife worked in service, and I was waiting for what I was there to pick up, and she talked with me, and I said, "What you doing?" And she says, "Oh, we're feeding into." That's when they were putting everything on and the hard documents into the computer, and they were doing the same thing in writing correspondence, because I was standing there talking to J.R. Brown, who was the head of the writing correspondence, and there was 2 women and the office next, and they came out to chat with me. I went over to J.R. Brown's office to pick up letters about child abuse. The men were we were trying to make up material and put it together for the governing body, and so JR writing correspondents had lots of letters, so they handed me that, and these women were saying, who were in the office next door, came out and chatted for a few minutes, that they were also doing the same thing. And so yes, they did. And why not break down? Break it all down, because I've talked to others who in the computer department, and surely in '89, the rule to all the elders, July of '89, was that if there was any reports of child abuse, I'm using their words, reports of child abuse, then the two elders would call. They go to a telephone booth back then, and they would call and report it to the society. And that was the first real rule. But remember, that was a report, and it could have been about a man, a woman, or a teenager. I mean, that's the basis of where the child abuse comes from. And so they would have separated all of that. And I have to tell you, there is an attorney that does have the database. And the society had to give it up. And after years and years of fighting for it, and the database, one of the major issues with the database is that they left some things out, like where particularly was. Now this is a few years ago that I was told this by an attorney, and he said the problem we had was that they wouldn't tell us where the individual and the congregation was, and the name of the congregation. So we got a list of all of the people, but we didn't know where they were located. So that had to be straightened around. So don't think that things don't happen. Lawyers don't give out information anyway, you know. So, but things happen, and what happens out of it, the society makes a new rule. They do their thing so they can stay out of trouble. They were writing checks. I heard from one individual, he knew, he was there, and he said from the department that writes out checks, and he says, anybody makes a big complaint against them, and they know they end up in court, they write a check. So this is where their some of their billions that they got from the sale of the Brooklyn properties is going. But you pay for your sins, right? Well, in this case, with the Watchtower, they're paying monetarily for the sins of others and for their own because they didn't handle it correctly. Is that the best way to say it? I don't know. I'm sure some of you could say it better, but that's how I perceive it.
Well,
so yes, it's broken up.
Well, no, I'll say it better.
You have to have it broken up with the internet. My God, you'd have you'd have 10, 15, maybe more of different lists of people. And I have another statement I'd like to make on this that I think people should know. There has been so much said about the database, the hidden database. And so the society sent a letter in March of '97 to all the congregations, elders. And they asked for the names, and I think there were 12 questions with the name of men who were appointed who were guilty of child molestation, but they used the word guilty, and found guilty. And so that's been said to be the hidden database. Well, what about the '89 one, the letter, to report in? That's a database, and that's name of every sort of report. Maybe a kid, and maybe a 12-year-old was putting his hands on a 5-year-old little girl. That happens all the time. So you have broken down to that. And it makes on the computer a lot easier than it did when everything was in file folders. So, they're not behind the scenes and not doing anything. They are doing things. And, they want their organization and their belief system to go on and on and on, like most people want theirs to go on and on. So they're paying off. And they have all this material. I tell lawyers if they ever ask how they who to sue and who has money. I mean, people don't know. Like the service department and the legal department were one department at one time. Who knew? Who knew that the writing department was operated by the Watchtower of Pennsylvania, not the Watchtower of New York, even though we were located in New York? That's the way it was. So, like other organizations, they have all of their corporations, and this one does this and this one does that. And some of their departments weren't handled well. I know that because I was involved with an issue that came up I was in the engineering department for 6 years, and I had something came up, and I had to call the accounting department. And so I talked to a woman, and she did, I think, if I remember correctly, accounts payable. And so I found out from talking to her that they didn't handle things like a regular office did on an accounting. They didn't have an accounting system like I was used to when I was trained. And they didn't have a section for overhead. And I was inquiring on how they handled overhead. And they didn't. They dumped it all in one pot. And I couldn't believe that. And so I remember thinking to myself, if I ever left Bethel and ever worked again, I wouldn't donate a dime to these people. This is how, and I said this to the girl. I said, that's how you go bankrupt on the outside. It's the overhead that drives you bankrupt. And she got huffy with me. Of course, she should have, because I was so shocked that I spoke up. And so she told her overseer. Next thing I know, I'm in a meeting with a group of men who want to know why was I calling, and what the man in engineering who was supposed to notify them in county that I was going to call, and governing body okayed all this and ask questions, but he forgot to notify them. So she didn't know why in the world I'm inquiring all this. But see, at the same time, I found out something. Well, because of that, they redid their accounting system. They had an old system. And I'm talking about this happening around 87, 88. And for years, they didn't update their stuff. They were so in love with themselves as the powerful and the leaders of the best and the most important God-given organization. They didn't handle the material things right. So then they had committees, and then they tried. They tried and they tried. And I talked with so many people over the years that not gossip, because we didn't. It was job related. And so I would find out this or that and make suggestions, or they would make suggestions to me. And, we were all, I considered us all godly people who wanted to do the best we could. And, but it, we tried. So, yeah, to answer your questions, they tried.
Barbara?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Joe from Colorado. I would like to just put in perspective how bad the pedophile problem was within just one Watchtower family. Now, I was raised in the 60s in the Watchtower. My uncle, who was the patriarch of the Watchtower family, he was the one that got every one of my aunts and uncles in Watchtower, I found out 4 years ago that he was a serial pedophile. Now, prior to that, when I was younger, my mom was married to a man. He wasn't my father. There were some judicial committees, and he was still allowed to read for the Watchtower. And they didn't run microphones in the 60s, but he ran the sound system. I learned later that he was in trouble for molesting one of my cousins and his own daughter. And he still kept his privileges. Lastly, my uncle that was the patriarch of our family, his son, who was a baptized witness, ended up going to prison. Now, the reason he went to prison wasn't because he was molesting several of my cousins who were witnesses. He went to prison because he molested a non-witness. So within one Watchtower family, and I have a large Watchtower family, within one Watchtower family, there were 3 pedophiles that I know of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I just want to end it this way. I was involved. I had moved to another congregation just to show you how they work so hard to cover this up. I didn't know about all this pedophile history till later on. I was baptized. I was an elder. Then I started to find out about my uncle, my cousins, and then my mom's husband. But I had been sent to a congregation that was having a lot of problems. And as soon as I was appointed, they pulled me to the back and they said, "We just want to let you know we need to keep an eye out on a ministerial servant." And I was like, "For what?" And they said, "Well, there are allegations that he talked a 16-year-old witness into jumping into the shower." And I was shocked. And now at the time, I was a paramedic. I was a fire medic. And I said, "You know what? You guys should have never told me this because I got to go to the police. I'm a mandated reporter." They threatened me with disfellowshipping. They said I would be slandering because it was her word against his. Well, they pressured me, and I didn't do the right thing. But I told them, I said, "This is going to come back to haunt you. You are cutting to the congregation." 4 months later, he reoffended not only with his stepdaughter, but her friend that she had over, who was not a witness. And I encouraged not only the mother of that poor girl, but I encouraged the sister to go to the police. And I was pretty much marked. That was my downfall because I finally did something. But yeah, they did so much to cover it up. And again, I just wanted to kind of put in perspective, statistically, when one Watchtower family, you got 3 pedophiles.
That's right. I agree with you. Absolutely. At the very average, one in every congregation over the years. When I came back here, I inquired of 3 congregations, 3 elders who are personal friends of my husband and I over the many years. And when we came back, I never told a soul what I was doing at Bethel at the end there. And I just acted like, just curious. I said, how many cases that made the press here in this town, this congregation, and 2 others? And 16 made the press in 10 years. This is a disgrace. Why do you think I went forward? Well, I knew I would lose my friends and family. Why they didn't do the right thing for years. They didn't care about children. I don't know. That's why they're in the position that they are in and have been for the past 10, 15 years. They have had to address this, and it's destroying them. And I make no excuses for them. I know I worked with good people. I know that they were the 4, that did everything they could at headquarters to do something in reverse that way that was handled. Pedophiles know what they're up to, where they're going and how to groom and all of that. One Canadian wrote me a few years back, and I had the letters at one time on my Facebook, my website, and he told me things that was extraordinary. And he said a detective told him that pedophiles on the internet, the dark side of the internet, they know where to go to get at the children. And he said, there are so many cases in North America of Jehovah's Witnesses having problems with pedophiles. He said, because they all know each other and they know where to go. They know where to join, even. Well,
hey, hold on
how
one
about
second,
those
Barbara.
who
Hold
are
on
sexually...
one.
Hi, Barbara.
Barbara, we got to hold on 1 second.
Hi, Barbara. This is
hold on
babe.
excuse me 1 second. Just hold on 1 second, okay? We've got other programs we're trying to get up here. I just want to make sure. Reese, are you on from the belly of the beast? Is Reese on from New York City? If you are, Reese, say hello to us. Reese from the belly of the beast, are you on with us? Yes or no? Okay, I've got a lot of people dialing in here tonight. We're looking for Reese. He's not on with us. So go ahead, Barbara, continue, sort of butt in here, but
well, I want to just say one more thing, Barbara. Paul, thank you for all the work you do, but I want to share one last thing about my uncle who got every family member in the Watchtower. He was removed as an appointed man, not for pedophilia. He was removed. He was a sadist, and he would beat his daughters. He would strip them down and beat them. The authorities took the children away from him. He was removed for physical abuse, not sexual abuse, and that is sick to me.
Yeah, well, I'll give you an example of how they used to handle this, and that's why they got all the troubles. And yours is an example. In the congregation in West Palm Beach, that Joe and I married there, and we would live there 20 years. And there was a congregation servant when Joe came from Bethel. The first time he was at Bethel in the 50s, and we married. He was automatically seemed like made assistant congregation servant. And when the congregation split, it was in a period of growth. We were married in 59. And so as time went on, the congregation servant who had moved into South Florida, like everybody moves into South Florida in those years, and the population's growing, he was doing things to people. He was a chiropractor. And he'd come in to West Palm Beach and he would do his chiropractor stuff, which was fine. I even went to him. I went to him, so did most of us. And he was a great chiropractor. I was 18 or 19 years old then, I think. And so we tried to... He was molesting.
Reese is waiting. He's waiting for you to send him the link to start his program. And his program is very important. Barbara's is too, but it's Reese's turn, and that's awesome.
Are you saying that Reese is in the chat? Are you saying Reese is in the chat telling you this?
Yes.
Okay. I just have one question for Barbara, and I'll be done.
Well,
I'll be done in just a minute.
I don't even know if Rick...
Well, I just asked Reese
Thank
if he
you.
was on. Reese, are you on the telephone line? Reese with his program, Watchtower and the Occult Connection. Are you on the telephone line, Reese? Speak up. He's not speaking up. I mean, that's how we connect with Reese. So you're saying he's in the chat, but
All right. Good evening, Rick.
Yes, Reese. Yeah, Reese. I mean, we're not, you know, when I ask, I mean, I'm not sure what's going on here. When I ask if you're on, I couldn't hear you.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, you know what happened? You had emailed me earlier and said you would send me a link to come on to YouTube.
Yeah.
So I was waiting for that.
Well, yeah, but just when I ask if you're on, then I know that you're on. I wasn't even sure you were coming on, but we're glad you're on, so that's good. So we're gonna end this program in about 5 minutes, okay?
Okay. You want to send me that link?
You'll get the link. Yeah, I have to end the program first before I do it, though. Okay, so just hang in there, and then as soon as you get the link, hit it. Okay. Yep.
Very good.
Okay.
All right, I'll be waiting.
Okay, Barbara Anderson, Nathan, Natus. We got about 5 minutes here. We're gonna wrap this up. Yep.
Hi, this is Acosta Big Linda James. Hi, Barbara. I noticed that somebody. Hi. I noticed somebody asked you if there was, you know, if they keep track of certain people that get angry or whatever. I've often wondered if they keep track of how many have died from blood transfusions and how many suicides may have happened. I've often wondered if this is on the you know, the list. What is it called again? I'm sorry.
Well, different departments handle different things. That's the way. The blood department would handle blood. They don't handle everything. They handle what is to deal with them. What's dealing with them up at the headquarters. It's unlikely they keep a list of all. Only when it shows its ugly, rears its ugly head if there's a situation, and then of course files get made. But it's too big of an organization. It's different, smaller now, but it's a different type of organization, and I can't speak for that. It's entirely different run.
I appreciate your time. Thank you, Barbara.
Oh, yeah. Glad to. You know, I just want to finish one-liner about what experience I was telling about in West Palm Beach. The man was molesting, the chiropractor was molesting, and how they got rid of him was that what he was doing caught nobody's attention in New York, even though letters were going there, and the district overseer got involved. It couldn't get removed. This guy moved because he was a personal friend of one of the top men at Bethel. And you know how they got him removed? They went into the telephone book, and he had his name registered, and his name was in the telephone book, and after it said Doctor of Chiropractor. And he had no license to practice in Florida. That's how they got rid of him. That's how they did things back years ago. Isn't that ridiculous? So why, I don't know. But I do know that one thing, and I can add to it, many of the men who ran this organization from Russell on were not, they were not sexually active. They were, nor was difficult in this area. He frowned at sexual activity, and even with his own wife. And that is I have an absolute source who knew them both. Russell and his wife divorced. That was a celibate marriage.
Oh, Barbara, we gotta end it there. I'm sorry, I don't want to cut you off.
That's okay.
No, we got 17 different programs here, and you know we have time slots, and that's the problem that we're running into. We're running into another program here, so. But you know, I thank you for wanting to come on. I'd love to keep you on longer, but we got so many people.
I never anticipated being on this long.
I'll tell you what, it's not like it used to be. It's so much more people. So many more people are leaving the Watchtower, and they're coming in here.
Yes.
And then we have these programs, and people are, oh, Rick, the next program's going to start, and it's just like it's unbelievable.
That's wonderful. Well, it's absolutely wonderful.
Well, it is. We're trying to develop like a network, but thank you, Barbara. Thank you. Well, I'll be in touch.
Well, thank you for doing what you're doing, and I am a faithful follower of what you've been doing for years, and you have certainly helped a lot of people by the efforts that you've made. Well, don't think that we don't appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Barbara. I know you do, and we appreciate what you do too. Thank you. And I think Nathan is still on with us too. Hello, Nathan. Jim?
I'm here.
Okay, Jim, I hate to say it, we're going to bring you back on again next week. I think, I like the way you sound. You got a nice, deep voice. I think we're going to have you have your own program on here. I really do. So, so we'll be in touch, Nathan. I mean, everyone loves you. Everyone loves Barbara.
You're a comedian.
Well, I'd like to ask Barbara to have a program.
MC and a comedian.
Yeah.
Hey, Jim, you and I can do we could do an, like Gracie Allen type of thing, and
I think that would be wonderful. No, even Barbara has an opportunity. I'm afraid to ask her, but she can come on.
We're two New Yorkers, and we could make quite a program, I think. So they need a little change from the deep, dark stuff to a little humor.
Well,
but I'm just saying.
That opportunity's open, Barbara.
And pierogi, hors d'oeuvres, and
absolutely. Well, I'll say good night, and thank you for listening.
Well, thank you, Barbara, and don't you, I'd love to have you come on a program too, so don't you discount it, okay? Thank you.
Okay, appreciate your asking.
We'll be in touch.
Bye-bye.
All right, okay, so just hang in with us, Jim. My goodness gracious, just hang in. I don't know why I call you Jim Pierce. I worked for a guy one time, his name was Jim Pierce, so I'm sorry. I had 6 screens.
Well, I probably look like him.
Well, you don't.
Especially on the telephone.
No. All right. So hang in with us. We're bringing you back on next week. I'll be in touch with you. I like the way you sound. People like you on here, Jim. They really
hard
do.
To believe.
So, well, it's hard to believe, I know, but they do. So, so they do. So we're going to get you back on with us. We got Reese coming up next. We'll see you next week. I'll call you this week, Jim. Okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Over to you, Reese.
All right. We're going to go to Reese right now. Reese, hang in with us. I'm just going to get you. I got to end this program right now. We're going to end the program, but Reese is coming up next. Watchtower and the Occult Connection right now coming up. Give us about 5 minutes. He'll be up with us. So we're going to